Yeah, so, it's been a while since I've done this. Yeah, I'm late on this, I'm sorry, guys. With the fourth wave of the Mario Kart 8 DLC being released, I knew I had to catch up with these ranking videos. And if you do remember last time when we looked at the second wave of DLC, I was pretty positive about the whole thing. I overall liked all the tracks, saying that it was an improvement over the first wave, and it's no different here. The third wave of Booster Course DLC was an even bigger improvement in my opinion, having higher highs and not as many lows as previous waves. Of course, I still think some tracks are better than others, but the new tracks aren't the only addition here, because Nintendo finally added a feature that really should have been in Mario Kart long ago. You can choose custom items now. Yes, you can now decide which items you want to include in races, meaning you can do shells only, mushrooms only, stars only, or blue shells only. But enough about that. Let's get this ranking video going, starting with London Loop is the definition of a mediocre track. One that doesn't do anything terrible to make it downright bad, but neither does anything great to make it particularly good. Although I've enjoyed a couple of city tracks like Paris Promenade for example, for the most part I'm not the biggest fan of them, and usually would prefer home console tracks to be included in the DLC instead of things like London Loop. And this track is basically all of my issues with all those other ones wrapped up into one track. Nothing in the map really sticks out that much. Everything just kind of blends together. There's no mini set pieces that are truly fun to go around, like in Sydney Sprint for example, with that bridge with all the fun jumps and subways going beside you. To me, any of the mini set pieces you go around like the park or the fountain go by so quickly that it all just feels the same. This track just feels confused. Nothing about it really feels all that connected. I mean, look at the map. It looks like a bunch of scribbles a child made on their coloring page at a restaurant. There's parts added here that make zero sense, like how in the first lap it splits off into two paths, one with item boxes and the other with none. I think the point was to give people who went the way with no items a little bit of a lead, but it almost doesn't matter since both paths take the same amount of time to go through, but only one gives out items. Not to mention how many straightaways there are with nothing happening. Straightaways are meant to act as a time of reprieve for racers, not a replacement for good track design, especially when there's nothing going on in them, like obstacles to avoid or sharp turns. And I would mention the chain chomps that are here, but they are such a non-threat that I can't even bother with them. And I think that's my overall issue. London Loop feels the most like a tour track, one that was specifically designed to work on a mobile phone game and probably not intended to be put into a mainline Mario Kart. So overall, the track is just a big meh for me. I don't downright hate it, but I'm not going to be thrilled anytime I have to play it online. Boo Lake is a nice, fun, eerie little course. Like Snowland in the previous wave, this one was also a Super Circuit track, remade into HD, and I think they did a terrific job with it. Although it's pretty short in length, I still think it does enough to help make it a nice simple track. One that isn't super amazing or something, but one that's fun to go around before really good ones. Like a tasty appetizer before you get into the main course. It has everything here. A spooky atmosphere, decent track layout, nothing but falling off the track as an obstacle, and a small but fun shortcut towards the end. The reason I put this above London Loop though, is its length. London Loop was kind of a slog to get through. It just went on for way too long. Boo Lake is just much shorter and doesn't overstay its welcome, and it knows what kind of track it is. So I like this one. I wouldn't actively go out of my way to play it, but if it were on track rotations, then I wouldn't mind one bit playing it again. Peach Gardens is a pretty fun, but overall forgettable track. I don't hate this one, quite the opposite actually. Similar to Boo Lake, this is one of those sit back and cruise around kind of tracks, where you don't really need to dodge and drift around every obstacle every single second and time everything perfectly. I mean, hell, the chain chomps here barely do anything, and with how few of them they are and how slow they are, they're pretty much not a threat. But the atmosphere and music really lend to how fun and laid back this map feels, with how cute and simple everything is, if that makes sense. Though the main reason I would put this above Boo Lake though, is because the final lap here kinda got the Calamari Desert treatment. Instead of going through a lap again regularly, you now go through it backwards. But unlike Calamari Desert, where you got to go through the train tracks and everything, there really aren't that many changes here besides skipping the hedge maze sections with gliders. But I do think it adds more variety to the course. But again, the track really isn't that special, and it's the atmosphere that sells it. The charmingly cute music that goes along as if you were strolling through a park is really nice, especially when it's put to the bright and pretty colors that make the overall track feel so welcoming and sweet. So Peach Gardens is fun to drive on with a great atmosphere and feel to it. but I'm probably not going to remember it after this segment and just be constantly surprised when it shows up in track rotations. It is good to see another track from my childhood return. Rock Mountain is pretty underrated in the grand scheme of Mario Kart. It may not be the most complex or unique course in the series, but it's one that I just find neat. The whole track just feels like one miniature adventure, where you start out by journeying into a cave, then launching out gliding across the sky, then going around a forest and finally climbing to the top of the mountain while avoiding boulders. I just love that. This whole track just gets you into the zone. The music gets you pumped with these awesome guitar riffs. It just makes you feel like you're going on some exciting expedition. Plus, speaking of the gliders, since this was the course that showed off gliders when they were introduced in Mario Kart 7, there's a big emphasis on them here, with how much openness there is for you to glide around, and how many shortcuts you can pull off, especially like the one towards the beginning, where you can fly over the side. And this is made even better with the new update removing lightning's negative effects on gliders. So you can pretty much just glide without any worry in the okay, except for that. Merry Mountain was originally going to be at my number 3 spot, but after playing it a few more times, it's not as good as I originally thought. But it's not bad, I swear. The track on offer here reminds me a ton of maps like DK Mountain, where you get to the top of the mountain and can see the massive distance to the starting line and then make a mad dash for the bottom. The biggest draw to this track is undoubtedly the theme, with it being a winter wonderland during Christmas, with presents strewn about the mountain, the music using bells, tambourines, and other instruments associated with Christmas. Although I may not be the biggest fan of certain designs and tracks, such as overly long straightaways with nothing to them, Merry Mountain's massive straightaway, though, is probably the most stress-inducing part of the track, since everyone passes enough item blocks to get shells and stuff to launch right at you at the top, and you have no cover whatsoever when trying to get to the bottom. It's basically an insane scramble to get to the finish line, as everything is being thrown your way, and it's great. The course overall is pretty simplistic, but it's the additions of tiny little things here and there, like a twisted split in the track at the beginning, or massive straights, that really make it fun, and a holiday theme is just the icing on the cake for this neat little track. Berlin Byways on my first playthrough was really not that great to me. Honestly, I was planning to put it next to London Loop on this list. Seriously. However, when going back and playing through it a few more times, I grew to enjoy it more and more. I started to notice interesting parts in the overall track design, and all the small details that just made this track really freaking good. Firstly, compared to other city tracks on this list, this one has a track layout that, yes, also looks like a child drew it with crayon, but actually has more thought put into it. Each turn, shortcut, split, etc. all work with each other beautifully and make this track feel dynamic. I mean, there's points where racers can literally run into each other on different parts of a lap, and it's so chaotic. The fairly cramped track design really lends itself here well, with there actually being a good amount of things that interact with you, like the well-placed thwomps, moving vehicles, and numerous tight turns. Just, God, this track is shockingly great. I may not be head over heels in love with this track and pretty much all the other Tour City tracks in the DLC, but this one in particular is an extremely good one, and probably the best city track so far. Maple Treeway is hands down one of the best Mario Kart tracks of all time, and I hold it close to my heart, not only because I grew up with Mario Kart Wii and 7, but because it is such a fun and relaxing track. The atmosphere here is almost unmatched with how calming it is, with the beautiful autumn colors and the charming music that the remaster did super well here, even dipping more into the country feel that it's going for. I love the addition of small parts with the clarinet. It was really a nice touch. The track design is fantastic, with there being a great mix of open areas and tight paths. Plus, there's a super fun shortcut at the beginning of the track that's always satisfying to pull off. I will say it is a little sad that the net from the Wii version didn't make a return, but at the same time, it isn't that big of a loss. Really, this overall is just such a beautiful and faithful remaster of the track that I will be playing on time and time again. I absolutely adore this version, with it being both fun to race on and absolutely gorgeous to look at. 3DS Rainbow Road is by far the best Rainbow Road in all of Mario Kart. Although other ones like N64 or Wii have terrific ones, I think the gap between them is so far that it doesn't really matter, so it's no surprise that I would rank this number 1. Compared to Maple Treeway, which almost got the number 1 spot, this track just has a great mixture of fun and challenging design. Just because I've played Mario Kart 8 for almost 10 years now and played 3DS Rainbow Road since I was a kid does not make this any less easy. The amount of tight turns and jumps that could lead to you plummeting into space is numerous, and even on 100cc you'll have to do some brake drifting, just trying not to fall off. The whole thing, in a way, is kind of like a space version of Rock Mountain, making you feel like you're on this mini intergalactic adventure. From drifting around the planets, then dodging and weaving on rings, going onto the surface of the moon, and ending it off with an incredible, almost totally straight shot to the finish line. Everything about the design is just amazing, and I absolutely adore it. And oh my god! The HD makeover this track got is so good! Everything looks perfect. Even right down to the road itself, which has this cool design where it looks like stardust gliding past you, almost like the Rainbow Bridge from Thor. Like, this whole track could legitimately be mistaken for being a base MK8 map because of how good this whole thing looks. So I truly think that there is almost no competition when it comes to the number 1 spot here. 3DS Rainbow Road is just an incredible map that I am so grateful to finally be brought here and done so much justice. But yeah, with that, the ranking of Wave 3 tracks is done. I'm really happy with the tracks on offer here. Although there were a couple I wasn't too enthusiastic about, I couldn't call any of them downright bad. And they're all really fun to drive around. Plus, with a few of the tracks from my childhood being brought back to life in glorious HD, made this way more fun, especially since they're also super accessible now. I don't have to rummage around for my Wii and a copy of Mario Kart just to play Maple Treeway. I'm looking forward to the new tracks coming up in Wave 4, which I'm probably playing right now, but I'll be getting that ranking video out of the way faster than this one. Thank you guys for watching and see you next time.